What's up, guys? Me and Larson are back. We are doing more win totals. We're onto the SEC today, everybody's favorite conference. If you guys did not watch the ACC video, go check it out. We had a few more picks than I thought we would for the ACC. I thought the ACC was going to be a little dry, so
yeah,
I'm glad we came up with something. But I'm excited about the SEC. We always have those teams that are like in the middle, kind of in that 7.5, 8.5 win that they could easily eclipse. But I don't know. There's a lot of middle of the pack teams I'm not too comfortable with.
Yeah, and the for whatever you think about the expanded playoff, it's going to make conferences like this, like being one of the bigger conferences, it's going to make it so interesting because, I mean, Missouri and Ole Miss and Tennessee, it's like these teams now, how many teams are going to get into the playoff from the SEC? Like 5, 4? 5 would be maybe kind of crazy, but it should make the middle so much more interesting, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if you think about it, like Texas, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, I could see all 5 of those teams getting in. And I mean, that's not even counting somebody like Missouri.
You're leaving out good teams at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it will be cool. We'll go. Let's start alphabetical order. We'll start with Alabama and sitting at 9.5 for the win total, juiced a little bit to the under. They aren't the prohibitive favorites anymore. That the Saban is gone. It's DeBoer's time, and Texas being a power now, and obviously Georgia being as good as they are, it makes for a more interesting conference. I think Alabama's maybe taking a little bit of a step back. They also got Kane Womack, the South Alabama head coach, to be the DC. I thought not too bad of a hire at all. Did you have any? I mean, you like DeBoer, you like Kane Womack. Did you like the hires?
Yeah, no, I think the demise of Alabama is being greatly exaggerated. I will say they do have a difficult schedule. Going to Tennessee, they play Georgia at home, but they go to Tennessee, to LSU, to Oklahoma, and then they got to host Auburn, who I think is going to be a much better team this year, which we will get to in a moment. It's definitely not an easy schedule. I don't think they're going to be that bad. They did lose a lot of talent, but they definitely brought some in. Like I would throw the brakes on saying this is like a slam dunk under, even though it's juiced a little bit. If they went 9-3, I wouldn't be too surprised. But if they went 11-1, are we all really going to be that surprised?
Yeah, definitely not. And I mean, and they lost 40 guys to the NFL in the portal, which is crazy. But then you think about like all the talent they have with backups, all the guys that they brought in with the portal. And the big piece is still obviously Milroe, because DeBoer is great with quarterbacks. DeBoer is great with offense. And Milroe will just get better for, the flaws that he has in the passing game. He's got a great arm and he can run and he's a tank. I mean, he's going to be tough to stop. And their wide receiver room is not the wide receivers we're used to. It's not those.
Kendrick Law is a pretty good player, though, I will say.
It's really Kendrick Law and like Kobe Prentice. And then outside of that, it's kind of some unproven guys, some young guys, which probably should be fine. There's a lot of talent there. The offensive line is going to be good again. And the defense, like you're replacing guys like Dallas Turner and Caleb Downs, which are going to be hard, but they're just stacked with the high recruits, and the linebackers are going to be good. I will say the hole for them defensively is probably in the secondary because, like I said, Downs is gone, and Malachi Moore is the only starter they have back there. So there's some questions about surrounding him back there. If there's a weakness there, it's probably the secondary. But like you said, with the schedule and the team overall, like people think Alabama's going to go 7-5. Like, hey, there's still going to be like 9 or 10 wins most likely.
I think 9.5 is a perfect number for them. I think it's a perfect number.
It is.
You look at Georgia and then one of LSU or Tennessee on the road.
Yeah. I don't have any bets for Alabama. The one fact to know is half of their conference schedule comes off byes. Georgia, Vanderbilt, LSU, and Oklahoma all have a bye before Alabama. Granted, they have byes before Georgia and LSU, so it kind of evens out. But wonder if that's going to take a toll. But no bet there for me. I don't think anything for you. They'll still be a good team though. On to Arkansas, sitting at 4.5. This was something I was a little neutral on until today, actually.
Good. I have a pick too. That's perfect.
Okay, let's go. So the big news is like they probably could have fired Pittman last year after some lackluster seasons. They chose to keep him. He brings in Bobby Petrino, who is a great offensive mind.
We all know what's going on here.
We know, right? Everyone's like kind of staring at each other. We know what's happening here, right? And but I'll say, like, I listened to Pittman today at SEC Media Days because he was on this morning. And, like, I think a lot of people love Pittman. Like, I still love Pittman from his time in Georgia. And I live in Arkansas, so I'm around the media here and everything like that. And he's just such a good like genuine guy. I think he works hard. He cares about winning. He cares about his players. They asked him, like, you're bringing in Petrino, like this is kind of the guy that's going to take over for you, right? He was like, yeah, but I think he'll help me win football games, and like we're just going to focus on that. I was like, yes. He also said the important thing is they have a new quarterback. Taylon Green comes from Boise State, who is a dual threat guy. His completion percentage was a little low, but he could probably get that fixed. Petrino's the guy to fix him. But Pittman said today, like, that is the guy. Like, he was our number one target, and we hit on him, and he's going to be great. And they lose some key guys, like Rocket Sanders is gone. Their running back room is going to be fine, though. They brought in Jaquindon Jackson, who's from Utah. I think their offensive line is going to be a lot better now that Pittman can focus on that. And then defensively, they actually improved a lot last year with a new defensive coordinator. They've got some players on that team. I looked at the schedule at 4.5, and I was sitting there. I was we can go through the schedule in a second, but I heard Pittman today. I was like, I think they can win 5 games if all that hits with Petrino. I think they can.
That's interesting you say 4.5 because I saw it at 5.5 and I have the under at 5.5. So that's I think we're at different numbers here. Let's just talk about them generally. You know, if we're gonna have different numbers, I would say over 4.5. But the schedule, man, like I go back to they're gonna win our
schedule. Yeah,
let's look. 2 of their first 4 games are at Boone Pickens against Oklahoma State and at Auburn. And then you got A&M at home, who A&M is expected to be much improved. Then Tennessee, LSU. Man, you really don't get a break until Mississippi State in the middle of October. Is Sam Pittman still going to be around by then?
Yeah. No, I mean, that is the question. Like, if it goes south, he's probably gone before the second.
They could easily be like 2-5, 2-6. And he's going to be gone. So that's my question.
So my thing would be like, if Arkansas is going to be better, if Petrino's the real deal, which I really think he might be. I mean, especially like he's a great mind.
He's won games.
You know what he's doing, and he's won games.
But he's won games.
And somebody has said too, like Petrino's going to win them games that they wouldn't have won without him. And if they love this quarterback, their running back room is good. Their receivers are going to be fine. Their offensive line's going to be good. Defensively, they're going to be good. Like they can beat UAPB. They'll beat UAB. I think they'll beat Mississippi State. I don't think Mississippi State's going to be bad.
I think they're going to be favored in 4 games. That's my thing. That's why I thought 5.5 was a really good number because
they'll be favored in 4 games. 3 of them are non-conference, and they can win the 4. And then Texas A&M is always a close game regardless. LSU, maybe it's like LSU's in Fayetteville, and Ole Miss is in Fayetteville, and Tennessee's in Fayetteville. Like, I think there will be chances there, and I think they'll win those 4 easy games. So they got to win 1 more, and if they're going to be better, the way hearing Pittman talk about it, hearing what Petrino's got to say about it, I think they can steal a game from somewhere, and I'm going to rely on that.
I see it at 4.5, so we'll stick with 4.5. I will stay away. If you have it at 5.5 still, I think 5.5 is good.
I'm not going to go over 5.5 for sure. I'm not sitting here saying they're going to beat Texas. They're going to win 8 games. I think they can win 5 games is the thing. Just avoid stupid losses. They have so many stupid losses, and they're bound to turn around in their favor at some point. Gosh, I'm gonna go for 4.5 and over with Arkansas.
Okay.
You feel strongly about Auburn, who's sitting at 7.5. Just give me your immediate rundown on Auburn because I have nothing. I have no great thoughts on them.
Yeah. So look, you watched Auburn last year. They were a extremely frustrating team at times. They lost. Yeah. I had the win total last year too. They lose their game to New Mexico State.
Yeah.
They almost beat Alabama, which I think would have cashed the win total and probably put Georgia in the playoffs, but we're not going to talk about that. Yeah. Just such an up and down season. But if you look at their schedule, I think they'll start 5-0 before they play Georgia. They got Alabama, A&M, Cal, New Mexico, Arkansas, Oklahoma. If Hugh Freeze has this thing humming, they should be 5-0. So you need to find 3 more wins. Here's who you got. You got Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, UL Monroe.
All on the road, Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky.
Right, but Vanderbilt, UL Monroe, Texas A&M, who I think they could beat, and then Alabama. I just see 8 wins there. I'm kind of feeling out the schedule. They bring in Cam Coleman. They bring in Perry Thompson. They got some talent on the perimeter. Like, they brought in talent, and that's the thing is a team that was not that talented last year was in a lot of games that they shouldn't have been. Did they lose one or two that they shouldn't have? Yeah, they did. But I think that Auburn is a improved team. Yes, Peyton Thorne is still the quarterback. That's the elephant in the room. But I just think they're going to be better this year. Like I said, I think they should have hit their win total last year. Obviously, blowing it to New Mexico State and Alabama was tough for me. I was kind of spot on for that, except for I wasn't. But I think 8 wins is totally achievable for these guys, especially considering, look, I see 7 wins right here. Alabama, A&M, Cal, New Mexico, Arkansas. I think they can beat Oklahoma. I'm not very high on Oklahoma. Vanderbilt, UL Monroe, there's 7. Can you beat Kentucky or Texas A&M? And other than that, maybe Missouri, I think you're good.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Peyton Thorne is back. He was overall pretty consistent, but he did have his moments. They had the worst passing offense in the conference last year, but they pulled in some really good wide receivers.
Cam Coleman's going to be awesome.
They got Keandre Lambert-Smith, who was really good for Penn State last year.
Yep.
Their running back room is good, and their offensive line basically returns everybody. So the offense will be pretty good. Defensively, they lost some pieces, but I think the offense will take a huge step up for sure. Yeah, I don't have any strong thoughts on them at 7.5. You probably are getting plus money on the over, I would imagine, which might be hedgeable if they can win 7 games and then you get to Texas A&M or Bama. So
yeah, it's plus 115 for over 7.5. I think that's good value. Like I said, let's say Auburn starts 5-0. Let's say they beat Oklahoma. I mean, if they start 5-0, yes, they'll probably lose to Georgia and Athens because that's what they do. But man, 5-0 in September with three games to go is going to be a nice ticket to be holding.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. Another one is with Florida at 4.5, and I think people look at Florida. I certainly fell victim to this. I think I immediately looked at Florida at 4.5 and said, "Oh, they're going to be that bad." But really, as you've pointed out, it's the 4.5 is more about their schedule more than it is their roster because they've got talent on the roster. This is a talented, it's a talented SEC program. Napier's obviously on the hot seat. That's going to be kind of something to watch and something to monitor. But you're betting Florida. I think you're betting Florida week 1 against Miami at home. Is that right? And
yeah, I'm taking them over 4.5 as well.
Yeah,
I'm taking them over 4.5 as well. I think Florida could start 5-0. Is that the craziest thing in the world to you? I mean,
no. I would say they could do 4-1 because I'm really high on UCF. I'm obviously really high on Miami, but they can win they can win A&M. They'll beat Sanford, Mississippi State, but 4-1 for sure.
Yeah, I'm high on A&M as well, but that's going to be Mike Elko's first road game in the SEC, and that's not an easy place to play. I don't think Graham Mertz is that bad of a quarterback. It pains me to say all this stuff. Let's say I think they can beat Miami. Look, we talked about Miami on the ACC win totals. I'm just not super high on Miami. I don't think I ever will be. But I think they could start 5-0. Maybe they don't beat UCF. They're 4-1. Maybe they don't beat Miami. I mean, Tennessee is usually at least somewhat of a close game.
Yeah.
Then you got Kentucky. They can handle Kentucky. They're not gonna win the rest of those games, I don't think, but they might be able to beat Florida State. I just think 4.5. Come on, man. They're not that bad. They can't be that bad.
Well, there's roster-wise, I think the defense is going to be a little questionable just because there's a lot of transfers. There's a lot of new faces there. They also did not force a lot of turnovers last year, and so you wonder, are they going to be able to grow into doing that? Offensively, though, Mertz, you don't like Mertz that much. Is there a world where they've got the 5-star freshman DJ Lagway? What if Mertz is struggling, they bring him in, it's a breakout thing? What if he's the guy?
I did say I like Mertz, by the way.
Oh, you did like Mertz. Okay.
Yeah. No, I do not think Mertz is that bad. I do think DJ Lagway is going to be a stud at some point, but I don't think Graham Mertz is that bad of a quarterback.
So they're on a 5-year losing streak to LSU, which I didn't know. And obviously the back half of the schedule is the brutal part. I was looking too. Someone pointed this out because they have, it's Georgia at Texas, LSU, and Ole Miss at home, and then at Florida State, right? Which are all that's just brutal. The game to bet there probably would be Ole Miss. It's in Gainesville. It's projected Ole Miss minus 6.5 right now, I think is the look ahead. But you're going to get Florida off of Georgia, Texas, and LSU. And then looking ahead to a rivalry to Florida State. Who knows, by the way, if maybe Florida, if there's some quit in them, if they've quit by now. But Ole Miss is coming off a bye in that spot. That looks like looking ahead to that probably if I would lay the points with Ole Miss in that game, minus 6.5. I don't know. The point is they're going to have to get their wins early. Because
I was just about to say, I get to say
the end is horrible.
I've been very nice to Florida, and now I get to make this dig. They're like Vanderbilt that we're going to talk about in a little bit. They got to get them early because they're not going to get them at the end of the year. So this is something you're probably going to be able to figure out in the first couple of weeks of the season if they're going to hit this or not.
Yeah. I looked at under 2.5 SEC wins, but not very strongly. There's nothing for me. Florida, they'll be a good team. They'll be better than their record says, most likely.
Come on, man. They're going to win 5 games. They got to win 5 games. It's
Napier,
one of those things.
Napier's thing. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. And, maybe – Napier does get fired. We've seen the interim coach bump before. Maybe they're going to an LSU or somebody that they have a real beef, a real hatred with an interim coach, and they come out and beat the hell out of LSU. You never know. So I'll take them. I'll take him at 4.5. I got him on the over.
On the opposite end of the conference, we have the Georgia Bulldogs, baby, at 10.5. I was surprised to see it's not juiced very heavily to the over. It's minus 130, minus 125, but Everyone, all the talk with us is like now they're playing a hard schedule. This isn't the SEC East anymore. I get that and everything. I do, but like we're gonna sit here and act like we didn't win all of our tough games. Really, I mean, obviously you can point out like Alabama last year, but hey, we've beat Iowa State or Ohio State. We beat Alabama. We win playoff games. Like it's because we're a good team, but that's just kind of a random rant. But like at Bama, at Texas, at Ole Miss, kind of three big ones, and then obviously Clemson to start the year. We said this last year too. Like I'm not betting on Georgia on a win total. I'm just not.
I got enough invested in this team.
Yeah, exactly. There's too much going on here, and obviously we're super talented. Beck, it's cool to see Beck be a Heisman favorite. I'm actually really like looking at Beck from the beginning of last year to now. I've really changed on them because I remember in that Auburn game last year where we really struggled, and there were some good takeaways. But I was like, is this guy the kind of leader? Is this guy the rally around guy? The way Stetson had that kind of confidence and that arrogance almost. And I couldn't have been more wrong about Beck because I love him now. And as far as like NFL potential, all that, it's as high as a quarterback my lifetime. Yeah, our lifetimes. I mean, he's really, I think he's special. We don't need to go through the whole roster. There are guys all over the place. The guy from the tweets that we were sending the other day, like Kirby, to talk about KJ Bolden that way at SEC Media Days and compare him to Starks is super exciting. Like that's going to be such a fun aspect to watch and see how.
I sub in KJ Bolden every time I play with Georgia on CFB 25. So dude, I love you, Dan Jackson. You're an absolute legend.
You've done great things. Yeah, you've done great things for us. It's just a business decision.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm excited about this team. Look, briefly, I'm not scared of Clemson. Alabama at Alabama, I still think is going to be an interesting game. I by no means think we're going to go out there and just whoop them. If that does happen, this is going to be Kirby Smart going out and saying like, all right, the last guy had my number and this guy will not. And I think that may be kind of where he goes out and tries to prove a point and really opens up a can of worms. But you're hosting Auburn, who I think is going to be a decent team. I'm not that scared of Texas this year. I think they're going to be we'll get to them. I think they're going to be worse than they were last year. And then, of course, you got at Ole Miss. I'm not scared of Ole Miss. I think they match up horribly with us. And I'm not scared of Tennessee. So I would lean over. I'm not going to take it, but maybe that's just the Georgia fan in me. But the schedule is daunting. I think it's as daunting as a schedule can get in college football. But a lot of these teams, I think, really just don't match up that well with us, and not a lot of teams do.
I hated the SEC's lazy ass rule of like next year we're
flipping the schedule.
But to get Bama, Texas, and Ole Miss and I think pretty sick. Also, you said like we worry a little bit about Auburn, which is natural, but it's like DraftKings has Georgia minus 23.5. That's just crazy. Like, here we go.
That is crazy. Auburn has not beaten Georgia in the state of Georgia, including SEC championship since 2005.
That's wild. Another thing, like I didn't realize, like you kind of don't think about it. Since November of 2021, we're 46-2. Like, holy shit, man. That's amazing. Yeah, that's pretty cool. No bets for me here. Actually, there's one thing. I parlayed. I'll get to this with Ole Miss. I parlayed Georgia and Ole Miss to both make the playoff. I'll touch on that more when I get to Ole Miss.
I think it's a great pick.
Only thing I have invested. Yeah. Kentucky, 6.5. I don't know if you're going to follow me on this one. This is like a yearly tradition for me. I just bet Kentucky overs. Not because it's an actual tradition, but because like it makes sense for me every year.
I think I took it with you last year because I remember being real sweaty during that
cash because we were
Louisville, right? Yeah.
But it's cash 3 years in a row, and it's 6.5. Like there's a minus 125. I got it at even money, 6.5, and I'm going to go over with the Cats again because I like Stoops. He had all the Texas A&M, the buzz, the hype, and he came back. Being like talking to Kentucky fans that I know, it was kind of like there are little frustrations with Stoops, like within the program, like not big ones, but I think they were kind of accepted that he was going to leave and then realized how much they wanted him back. So there's kind of this new romance with Stoops in UK, but Vandegrift comes in at quarterback who has talent. I mean, everyone would say he has talent. They said he had a good spring. They got Chip Tranum, who's running back from Ohio State. Their receivers and tight ends are actually really skillful. Like they have really good players there. And then their trenches are really good because Stoops does a good job with that. I think the offense can put pieces together. Like obviously Vandegrift putting it together will be big. But I think that they have a roster that is really good. And their defense, top 20 defense last year, they returned like two guys that are going to be first-round picks. They got Jamon Dumas-Johnson, who was a huge player for us last year. The defense will be really solid. Like, this is a really good team on paper, and the schedule isn't horrible. 6.5 is definitely, it's an overbet for me. Are you going to follow?
Might as well. We do it every year anyways. But I mean, look, I'm looking at the schedule right now. Let's see. Southern Miss and South Carolina, who I'm not high on. You should start 2-0 before you host Georgia.
They'll beat Ohio.
Maybe they match up well with Ole Miss. Maybe. Don't really know. I mean, they are kind of like a light
loss and be fine.
They're kind of like a light version of Georgia. But yeah, you can still lose and be fine because you got Vanderbilt, Florida, and Auburn. And I know I'm higher on Auburn, but it's still a winnable game, especially at home. Tennessee, who knows? They've finally started punching back at Tennessee after losing to them for
I hope so
forever. And then Murray State and Louisville are on there. And I mean, Louisville should be a decent team, but it's a rivalry game. We saw how it came down to it last year. You throw Texas in there, which they're probably not going to win. But yeah, no, there's winnable games here. And especially I think this is a good number for them. But I don't think there's any reason why they can't go over.
No, I mean, they should be 4-2 going to Florida. I think they can go to Florida and win. I think they can beat Auburn at home. They can snag one of those, and there's 5.
I'll take it with you out of solidarity.
And Murray State is 6. You can even hedge it with Louisville if you want to. I think it's a money-making opportunity. I'm going to trust. I like the coaching staff and the roster a lot, though. So I'm going to go with the Cats again. This is 5 years in a row.
I guess I am too.
It's been profitable. LSU sitting at 9.5. There's some 9s out there for the win total. What do you say about LSU? I mean, obviously everyone's going to focus on the defense. It's funny because they had the literal Heisman winner last year. I think everybody's still just focused on defense.
That was the first thing I wrote in my notes. I mean, Matt House is gone. I believe he's the linebackers coach for the Jaguars now.
Yeah, they got Mizzou's DC, Blake Baker, who was really good. Missouri's defense was really stingy last year. But LSU, you lose Daniels, obviously. You lose your leading running back. You lose your offensive coordinator, who went where? I think Notre Dame. And then you lose Neighbors and Brian Thomas. So it's we're really replacing a lot of pieces here.
Replacing talent, I never worry about with it. They have so much.
You shouldn't. Right. You shouldn't. And they probably don't. Nussmeier, people have been talking about Nussmeier for, I think, 2 years now or whatever, that he should be fine. The big question is, so you lose that running back and you lose all of Jaden Daniels' rushing yards because I think he was the leading rusher on the team, or he was second at least, Daniels. He had a lot of rushing yards. So that's going to be an interesting little wrinkle. Their offensive line is going to be fine. And then, literally any improvement from the defense is a huge win. And guys like Harold Perkins still there, who I think was kind of quiet last year, if I remember, after the insane freshman season he had. But obviously fixing the defense is number one. So that's going to be the number one priority. Schedule wise, anything jump out to you on the schedule? Because it's not a bad schedule. I just wanted to do the while I look it up, I wanted to do the I know we're running low because the COVID years are kind of running out, but the one of those that guy's still there. John Emery. John Emery is still on LSU. Dude, he played with Burrow, man. Wasn't he committed to Georgia too at one point?
I think so. Yeah, John Emery, man. I do remember that.
That is insane. Wow.
I think they'll beat USC. I'm very low on USC. Our Big Ten thing is going to be 2 parts probably, but I think they could easily start 5-0. USC, Nicholls, South Carolina, UCLA, South Alabama. They should lay waste to all of them. And then you look at the rest of the games. You got Arkansas in there. You got A&M in there because A&M is going to be a bit of a wild card. They'll probably lose to Ole Miss, which I don't know. I mean, that's usually a competitive game. The thing is with LSU, man, I feel like they just beef with everybody in the SEC, and they get these high octane, real hateful games to where they can emotionally will themselves into it. They got they're beefing with Ole Miss, Alabama, all these good teams. I kind of feel like they can hang with them, and there's just so many toss-ups, man. LSU is a frustrating team to bet season totals on. I typically like to go game by game to kind of feel them out because last year I didn't think they would have literally the worst defense that I've ever laid eyes on in my entire life, especially with Harold Perkins. So I'm going to stay away here. I would probably lean the over. I'm usually high on LSU just because of the talent. And, if they don't hit this over, Brian Kelly might be in trouble.
There are too many close spreads. Looking at some of the spreads, it's -2, -2.5, +1, a lot of close games. Are you going to get the same efficiency and productiveness from the offense this year that you got last year? I would bank on probably no, but then is the defense going to improve that much to make up for it? Again, I'd probably say no. So my initial takeaway was, I think you said you would lean to the over. I would, if I was betting it, which I'm not, I would probably lean to the under. just because like they're going to go to Florida, who could be tough, and then you obviously like you get Ole Miss, Arkansas, and A&M. 2 of those are on the road. They could lose 2 of those games, honestly, for all I think, and then you get not even counting Bama, not even counting Oklahoma. So I could see it. I could see like an 8-4, like an 8-4 season for LSU probably. No bet for me there on that one. It'll be interesting to see. I'm trying to look at to make the SEC championship game, just to make it is plus 400 for LSU. If you think LSU can contend like that, go for it. Here's a team that will not be contending: Mississippi State, sitting at 4.5. At least last I checked was 4.5. I can't imagine it's gone up or anything.
What I have, yeah.
There's really not much to say on this team. Jeff Lebby's the new coach and the offense coordinator. He's taking both roles. There are 0 returning starters on offense. Like, this is a brand new team. And Blake Shapen, just your quarterback, who I think has been, where has he been? He's been Baylor, and I thought he went somewhere else.
Baylor? God, did he go to BYU maybe?
He went. I swear he was somewhere else. Yeah, there was.
He definitely was. Yeah. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was just Baylor.
He's gone a lot of places, but here he is now, and he doesn't have many. He has a pretty mid running back room, a pretty mid offensive line, again consisting of all new players, and then a lot of success. I think is going to depend on basically the wide receiver room. It's a deep room. It's just a lot of unproven guys, like who's going to click. And Lebby might be good enough that he can make things work here. The problem I have too is defensively was top 40 defense last year, but they lost everybody, and they have a new defensive coordinator. They lost 7 of their 8 top tacklers. I don't think there's anybody on this roster. There's no talent on this roster, really. I think they'll go 4-0 in the non-conference because they played Arizona State, who will get to the Big 12. I think is going to be really bad. The bet for me here, because I'm not going to go under 4.5, because like I said, I think they'll. You're just betting
that they won't upset anybody at that point. Yeah, because
yeah. Well, I'm going under 1.5 SEC wins, which I got at minus 112, because I look at like just to Florida, Texas, Georgia, A&M, Tennessee, Missouri, Ole Miss. I think
Arkansas's in there too. That's
Arkansas is the one. Like they host Arkansas and Florida, which are easily the most winnable conference games they have. But I think Arkansas is going to beat them. Florida should beat them. I to get 2 SEC wins, I think is a tremendous job by that new staff. So I'm going for sure.
Yeah, if they lose to Arizona State week 2 and you have under 4.5, you can go ahead and take that.
You're good. I just didn't want to take the chance on that, and I don't. If you think Arizona State can beat them, then I guess you could play an under 4.5. The other thing though is under 4.5 was like minus 130. You could just basically get the same thing with the SEC wins under at minus 112. By the way, do you remember their one SEC win last year?
Wasn't it 7-3 over somebody?
7-3 at Arkansas.
Yeah, that's right.
We're great. Yeah,
I remember because I think you were high on them last year, and I was high on Ole Miss, and you were not high on Ole Miss, and I think we ended up. Or maybe that was the year before. I think that may have been the year before.
There was that was a horrific game against Arkansas, and then they also, if you remember, they beat Arizona, that amazing Arizona team, because I think it was still Jaden DeLora, and he had like 5 turnovers.
Yeah,
so they went 5-7, but they're literally that Arkansas game and a few Arizona turnovers away from being 3-9 last year
with a better roster.
So with a better roster, right, and a harder schedule this year. So I love an under on the conference wins if you can get it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think they're going to be good. I would still say even if we're doing the 4.5, lean under.
Yeah. On to Missouri, who is at 9.5. I don't have anything for Missouri. I'm actually really surprised at how much I kind of like this roster. There are definitely holes there, but
I want to pat myself on the back for calling this last year, and I had absolutely no reason why. Do you remember that? I was just like, I don't know. I kind of like them this year.
That's a good point. And we talked about too, like because I went to the game where they came to Athens, like for them to go into Athens and challenge as much as they did, I mean, they had the ball in the 4th quarter with a chance to take the lead.
It wasn't fluky, man. They were just like moving the ball, playing defense. Like it wasn't a cheap win for Georgia at all.
I was really surprised and really impressed by them. And they keep a bulk of the roster. Like Brady Cook has taken huge improvements. And then obviously you've got like Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper. It's all led by Luther Burden, who's amazing. And they grabbed, I don't know if you've heard about these 2 running backs they grabbed from App State.
Marcus Carroll out of Georgia State.
They're the real deal. They're great. I think they're going to be awesome. And so the offense, I think, should be fine. But we talked about the defense that was good.
I don't remember his name. It's not Abrams Drain. That was last year.
Wait, who is it?
At corner. Chris Abrams-Drain was last year. Ennis Rakestraw, and there's the third guy. Ennis Rakestraw went to the NFL. I think he got drafted with the Titans, but
they grabbed a new corner from Clemson who should be pretty good because the secondary is going to be their weakest part of the defense because they lost a lot of guys there. They actually have a 5-star. They've got like a top 10 recruit, 5-star on the defensive line who's going to get some playing time. Their linebackers are all right, but it's just going to be about plugging in some of the holes that they had because obviously they lost Blake Baker to LSU.
That hurts.
So.
Yeah.
And it cannot be understated also this. Harrison Mevis is gone. They can't cross the 50 and make field goals anymore. Unless this new kicker is just amazing, but new faces on defense, new special teams. I think the offense is going to be fine.
They also might have the easiest schedule in the SEC.
That was the next thing is the schedule is a cakewalk. Like I've heard someone say if they go 10-2, are they getting in the playoff? And they said no. I don't know.
No, because that would either be losing to Auburn, Alabama, or Oklahoma. Probably Alabama and Oklahoma, I guess, are the teams that are projected to be the best.
Yeah,
but you would pretty much lose to the only two of the 3 good teams on your schedule.
Yeah, well, and because they play Vanderbilt, they play Mississippi State, they play Arkansas and South Carolina, who by all metrics are probably the 4 worst teams in the conference, and they play all of them.
How many SEC teams does UMass play this year? Because they play Mississippi State, us, and Missouri.
It is weird. It's like how UConn does the same thing and BYU used to do it. Like you would look at the Big 12 and be like, oh, so everybody in the Big 12 plays BYU, obviously before BYU joined the conference. But yeah, that's a weird thing. Missouri going there cannot be understated how strange that is. And I don't know who
agreed to that.
Who agreed to do that? I actually, again, I like the roster a lot. I wasn't going to play. You could get an over 9.5 at plus money if you think that they can go 10-2. There just feels to me, as much as I like the roster, like there's a trip up somewhere. Like there's going to be a week where you're like, oh, I guess I'll turn on this game because it's tied in the third quarter, like they're at South Carolina or something. That's literally the only reason I'm staying away from the win total for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a team that definitely is in line. So look, Missouri fans, if there's a Missouri fan watching this, you can't get mad at me because I was gassing y'all up.
We just complimented y'all like 3 minutes ago.
It kind of feels like they're not a team that's gonna. Like, I feel like there's got to be some kind of regression here, not like to the extreme, not to where they're going to go 7-5 again. Yeah. But I feel like there's going to be some sort of like, okay, you guys had a great year last year, but like everything kind of lined up and now we're back to closer to the median. But I still think they're going to be a fantastic team. I think Luther Burden's the best wide receiver in the country, bar none. That kid is fantastic. Brady Cook's not very bad. So there's your compliment sandwich. I said things, nice things, and then a critique, and then something nice at the end. So
they're plus 600 to make the SEC championship, and they're plus 175 to make the playoff. If you want to dabble on that,
I'm glad we don't play them this year. That's all I gotta say.
I absolutely agree. Oklahoma is sitting at 7.5. I think you said you don't think Oklahoma is going to be very good. I don't have a great opinion on that. Give me your take.
Yeah, I think they'll start 5-0. So that's the main thing. They should start 5-0. So you look Temple, Houston, Tulane without Willie Fritz. At Tennessee at home, they should win that game. I don't know. Yeah. That's a toss-up.
That's going to be also a very exciting game. I'm excited to watch that.
I meant to say 4-0 also, excuse me, because they go to Auburn after that. And then that's where things start to get tricky. Then after that, man, it's just like a hodgepodge of this is just a weird schedule, man.
Up and down, yeah.
There's a lot of trip-up spots here. Look, you got a South Carolina sandwich between Texas and Ole Miss. You got Maine scheduled in between. I mean, they're not going to lose to Maine, but Maine scheduled between Ole Miss and Missouri. And then you finish off with Missouri, Alabama, LSU, which I think should be an 0-3 stretch for them. So you're looking at their last win potentially being November 2nd. I don't know. I just don't have a great read on this team. I don't feel that strongly that they'll go under. But I'm just not I'm not a big believer that they're going to have a very smooth transition into the SEC. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I think Brent Venables is a good defensive coordinator. I think he's like a good coach. But with the standards they have at Oklahoma, I don't know if he's going to be living up to those, especially. I mean, you look at the win total, it's 7.5. Like, I don't know, man. Tennessee, Auburn, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, and LSU is not a cakewalk.
It's hard. No, I was surprised too by the odds, how it was pretty even. Like it's like minus 110 on both sides, basically, for what Vegas thinks. And everybody clowned Venables for that first year because of like the defense was so bad. They're like, you're supposed to be this big defensive guy. The defense got a lot better last year, and they returned a lot of guys from that last year. So I think the defense is really starting to round into form. And then it just kind of depends on what you think about Jackson Arnold, because Gabriel's gone. Jeff Levy's gone. So new offensive coordinator, new quarterback. The offensive line's key because they lost 5 starters. So they're kind of throwing some transfers in. But it sounds like the guy to watch from everything I've read has been Deion Burks, who's the receiver they got from Purdue, that they said he's just electric. So he's going to be fun to watch. On the offense, yeah, it's a lot of tough games, and they're going to pull an upset here or there. Like it could be Tennessee, it could be Auburn, but definitely nothing concrete.
I think there's too many question marks for me to put a stamp on anything. I would lean to the under. I think 7-5. Like I just think this is not going to be an easy train. This is a bad time to lose your OC, lose your quarterback, and just like it's just I don't know.
Yeah.
They have more questions than answers for me.
Yeah,
for that reason, I'm going to stay away.
Yeah, I wrote that same thing. Too many toss-ups. 7 of their 10 losses, by the way, under Venables have been by 1 possession. So maybe some regression, some positive regression there.
Yeah,
you never know. On to Ole Miss, another contender now. Like Ole Miss is really, they are up there. They're at 9.5 for their win total. They are, what are they, plus 600 to win the SEC? Like they're a legit contender. It's Georgia, Texas, and Ole Miss basically for the top 3. The surprising thing with the odds is they're like minus 130 to make the playoffs. Something I mentioned earlier. I had played. It's just basically like an all-star team of transfer guys that Lane has pulled in, and that's obviously a specialty. We haven't seen teams kind of build themselves through the portal like this and then go on to have this great success.
Successfully.
is the one big question. Now, if there's a team that's going to do it, it's probably this one because Jackson Dart is amazing. Quinshon Judkins is gone, but they bring in Ulysses Bentley, who is a really good running back. The running backs room should be fine. Their wide receivers are awesome. Like their tight end is great. It's Prescorn and Trey Harris, and I forgot that they got Juice Wells from South Carolina, who was like he's really good. The offense is going to be awesome. I mean, they scored 35 points per game last year, and I would expect it to be more.
Yeah, Quinshon Judkins, his time at Ole Miss is. They'll be talking about that in 10 years with some of the antics he was pulling, apparently. Yeah. So I don't even know. That might be addition by subtraction. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it'll be fine. They have enough all-star guys there to spread the ball around.
You look at the schedule, they should start 6-0 easily. Their first 6 games should not be a challenge. They should demolish Wake Forest, even though that's on the road. Kentucky at home, South Carolina on the road. I don't anticipate them being challenged until October 12th when they have to go to LSU. Yeah. And that's a game I still think they could win. Then you get Oklahoma and Arkansas, 2 more games that I think they could win. Are they going to be undefeated hosting Georgia in November? Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Yeah. And then after that, you finish with Florida and Mississippi State, 2 more games they could win. So I don't think 11-1 is not out of the question for them.
No, not at all. And I'll say this too, because it went into my bet, which was just I parlayed on FanDuel Georgia and Ole Miss to make the playoff. It was like plus 120. I thought that was awesome. I read up on, like when reading up on LSU, again, I had those questions about can LSU repeat like offensive success and will the defense improve? So then I read at Ole Miss and I see all these guys coming in and they go to LSU. I know it's in Tiger Stadium, but I just looked at that and I was like, I think I come away feeling so much better about Ole Miss than I do LSU. So I would give the edge to LSU there. And I think it's LSU minus 2.5 is the spread for that game. I would bet Ole Miss right now. I'm not going to, but that's what I'm leaning. Because their defense too, the Ole Miss, like this is a defense that's going to be great because you get Walter Nolan, who, as much of a head case as he is, has a lot of talent. And how do you say that guy's name from Florida? Princely Umar.
I call him Princely. That's all I call him.
Princely. So. He's nice. Their defensive line is going to be really nice. And linebackers are good. They've got plenty of 4 and 5 stars scattered across the defense. So.
Well, that's where they got whoops last year. You could just go watch that Georgia game. They were hanging. This was a close game, and then Georgia started ripping off 15-yard carries at a time, and that's when things started to fall apart.
Right. So that's where you go get the Walter Nolan and the Princely guys, and running on them will be much harder. I think the schedule is just really easy. At 9.5, I couldn't, for whatever reason, pull the trigger on over 9.5, so I went with the playoff bet just because I think they're bound to be one of the top 12 teams in the mix up there. Especially if they beat LSU, which I think they can, and start, 7-8-0. So the Georgia game is going to be huge, and they can even lose that and be fine. So I think Ole Miss, they're not going to win the title or anything, but they are a legit team. I think they're a top tier team for sure.
Yeah, and I think if you're an Ole Miss fan, you should be pretty happy with that. Like, I think I lean to the over. I'm probably not going to bet it. Ole Miss is probably a team I'm just going to take on a game by game basis. I got really bogged down with it. This is probably a total I would have bet last year, and I'm trying not to do as many this year. But I like Ole Miss. I think if you're hankering, if you really want some win totals, I think that's a good one to take.
Yeah. I expect to see them there at the end of the year. South Carolina, 5.5. A team I am not very high on at all. In fact, I have not bet an under 5.5 for them, but I definitely would. There's not much to this team for me. Like, you have a few players. They got Rocket Sanders from Arkansas, who really helps their running back room because they were dead last in the SEC last year in rushing yards. So the offensive line is back. Running back's good. It's just like the quarterback, because I've heard people talk about this Lenore Sellers, and he's a good athlete, but
Robbie Ashford,
he's a freshman. Robbie Ashford's there too. Like, there's a lot to learn from the Sellers guy. Ashford, he is what he is. They're very weak at wide receiver though. I think they have one guy. Everyone's pointing out this Nick Harbor guy on CFB 25 because he's like a 99 speed, all this stuff. But their wide receiver room
still a video game.
Still a video game. And I was gonna say their wide receiver room is still very weak. And the amount of players who are on their team this year who caught more than 12 passes last year, 0. So that's important. It's not like you have a senior good quarterback. It's not like if you have what's his face from last year that's back, that would be one thing. But it's a redshirt freshman quarterback. So that's gonna be a huge learning curve.
Or Robbie Ashford.
Or Robbie Ashford.
So here's my thing with South Carolina. Here's how I digested their schedule. They'll probably start 2-2. They'll beat Akron and Old Dominion.
Yeah, that's what I said too.
They'll lose to Kentucky and LSU. Then they're going to go a month without a win.
Yeah,
they host Ole Miss. They go to Bama. They go to Oklahoma, and then they finish off with Texas A&M at home, which doesn't. It's one or the other. One of them weirdly cannot beat the other one. They've played like a strange and inordinate amount of times. I think it's South Carolina
every year, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know why.
It's a random, yeah.
Yes, but regardless, I see maybe 4 losses in a row. They will not win a game in October. I can tell you that right now. They have their bye in there, which is kind of cheating, but they won't win a game for a month.
Well, I mentioned last time that I like to do the research and then I kind of project what I think the win total is before I look at it. So I said this is an easy 4.5. I couldn't believe it was 5.5 because, like you said, they'll beat Old Dominion, they'll beat Akron, and they'll beat Wofford. They can go on the road and beat Vanderbilt. We'll touch on Vanderbilt later. I'm not.
But who are they going to they got to upset 2 of these teams,
and then they've got to upset. That's 4 wins. They got to win 2 more. Who are they? Are they beating?
They have to play at Clemson this year. It's not a home game.
Yeah,
I know they've had some good luck against Clemson, but man,
I just don't see Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, A&M, or Missouri. It's hard to see. I mean, they could even beat Kentucky, and then you're at 5. But I don't see 6 at all. And it's a new quarterback and new receivers and a defense that really has to improve, but there's no signs that it will. And a hard schedule, a harder schedule than last year with a worse team than last year. Like who won 5 games? I don't get that. I don't know.
Why is the underjuiced is my thing. I'm very confused.
Why is the underjuiced or the overjuiced? What do you see?
Excuse me. The over's juice. It's minus 130. And then I see 5.5 at plus money, under 5.5. I don't know, man. I'm going to trust my instincts on this one and say under. Sorry to South Carolina fans. I know I pick you under almost every year, but to be fair, I've been pretty spot on. So.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they win 6 games, I will applaud them and I'll take the loss. And I'll say, wow, I did not see that coming. I physically with my eyes need to see them win 6 games on the schedule because I don't see it.
I just don't think that, like I said, and part of it's your schedule. Once again, I don't see you guys winning a game for over a month. And that's really hard for me to say you're going to make a bowl game if I don't think you're going to win a game for a month.
Unless Lenore Sellers is like RG3 or something, then I'll reconsider, but we don't know that.
And you know what? Then I guess I'll take a bath on it.
Then we'll take it seriously. Yeah. So speaking of new, young, dual threat quarterbacks with a lot of potential, Tennessee, who actually for a win total, I like there's a 9.5, there's an 8.5. You can kind of get different ones. But it's Nico time. It's Nico time in Knoxville. And they had the frustrating year last year with Milton, but they returned these wide receivers who have been really good. They got some transfers and the offense, by all means, the Heupel system with this new quarterback, they all love Nico. Should be clicking again. Unfortunately, I hate to say that because I
hate Tennessee more than anything. But
the offense is gonna be nice. I mean, I
think Nico's a good player. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I don't have any strong feelings on this one. I would lean, and I mean like really, really barely lean over. But they got to beat Oklahoma at Oklahoma. I think that's going to be the big game on the schedule for them to do that because there's some tough ones. Alabama, I know they beat them, but still historically gives them trouble. They have to play at Florida, they host Florida. They have to play at Georgia. Kentucky's not an easy win. I think there's I feel like they're a lot like LSU to me in that sense, honestly.
Well, you didn't even mention, I think, week 2 neutral game against NC State. I really like NC State this year. I think that if it's not all clicking, if it's not clicking early, NC State has a defense that's good enough that they can win that.
They're a well-coached team. Dave Dorian's a great coach, so that's something they're always going to have. It's like they're almost like Utah in that sense, to where like you can't overlook them no matter what the circumstances are, because they're going to come prepared.
Yeah. And then at Oklahoma is going to be a great game. I think this is it feels very 9-3, I guess. And then obviously you're up to maybe an upset if they could win. They could beat Alabama and get to 10 wins. But yeah,
that's why I say lean very, very gently lean over. I think this one's a perfect number.
Yeah, making the college football playoff plus 180 if you want to go that route, and then they're 14-1 to win the SEC. None of that none of that interests me. I don't have anything for this team. They'll be good. It'll be fun to watch Nico next year after this year of improvement and growth. Next year might be the year where we really start to worry about them. Texas at 10.5, new kid on the block. Sounds like you think they're going to go under, which kind of matches what Vegas says. I think it's like a -150, -160 to the under 10.5, but they are obviously third favorite, I think, to win the championship, second favorite to win the SEC, but you're low on them, which I don't.
Yeah. If they beat Michigan, I think this thing is all but over, in the literal sense. Colorado State, they have Torrey Horton, they have some players. They'll dismantle Colorado State. Michigan, obviously a good team, and then they should be good. I think they'll handle Oklahoma quite easily. You never know, though; it's a rivalry game. Yeah. They'll be good till they host Georgia, and then after that, I mean, you got at Vanderbilt, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and A&M. Are they going to trip up? Because we watched Texas last year, which when I thought they had a better roster, and they were not really blowing out a lot of teams that they should have been blowing out. And you got to wonder if some of those W's turn to L's when you get a little bit of tougher competition. Houston is a game that comes to mind. It's a team that they let hang around for far too long.
Let me raise that because I pointed out. I remember pointing it out on one of our shows last year, was because I think I lost money on them 3 times spread wise. It was Houston and K-State and TCU, where they had big leads and they just chose to basically do nothing. And then when the other team came back, it was like, TCU was down like 29-6, and I think lost by 3. K-State did the same thing. It really pissed me off because like I'm trying to win these. I called the game perfectly. That is an interesting thing, and now you play that harder schedule. And how many games are they really going to lose? I mean, there's Michigan, there's Oklahoma, there's Georgia, and then there's probably Texas A&M.
It's like 10.5, man. Are they going to play like near perfect ball all season? Let's say they lose to Michigan and Georgia, the 2 games they're supposed to lose. Do you really think they're going to play perfect ball the rest of the season with first year in an SEC schedule? I just don't think so.
Well, and I wish almost like if there was a 10, you would interest me much more at the over if there was a 10, like a whole number, because you could push on 2 losses. But don't let it be understated how important it is that Texas plays Georgia after Oklahoma back-to-back, little bit possibly of a hangover spot. I mean, you're not going to overlook Georgia or anything like that, but just an interesting
a lot of rivals. It's one of the things too, to where like that's a spot where somebody can sneak up and hit you in the mouth. Even Arkansas, man, like Arkansas, Texas is a big deal. And then you got Texas A&M at the very end of the season where you could be sitting at 9 wins, and that or sitting at 10 wins, excuse me, and that would be number 11 possibly. Man, I'm not buying it. If they still make the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised if they're 10-2 or 11-1. I'm not going to be surprised, but I don't think it's some foregone conclusion that they're going to be one of the best teams in the SEC this year.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, they can easily, and like they'll be 10-2 probably or something like that, and they'll make the playoff and all this stuff. But the roster is loaded with talent, like it is for these top teams. With the offense is obviously great, and then the defense, you get a lot of really good guys. So Texas is not going to suck. Texas is going to make the playoff. I would be so surprised if Texas did not make the playoff, just because they have the brand and the hype train. Like even they're going to do whatever they can to put Texas in. But it will be fun to watch them. I'm super excited for Texas at Texas A&M.
I would have been. Let me say this from a Georgia perspective. I would have been much more scared to play in last year with Worthy and AD Mitchell.
And by the way, Texas is not Georgia's hardest game this year or biggest game this year. That's Alabama. That's my perspective.
100%.
Georgia, Alabama is 100% the biggest game on the schedule. Sorry,
100%.
Texas. You're second.
Yeah, 100%.
Texas A&M, sitting at 8.5 for win total. Pretty even in terms of prices.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are we betting A&M week 1? Because I've been thinking about that a lot.
I can't decide. I cannot decide on that game because I've
the things they're going to be a home dog. I need to look at that. I need to look at the line.
Yeah, but it's going to be what? They're +1. Or I think it's even from what I saw yesterday. I mean, I
think it's fair.
I don't know. Notre Dame, yeah. Notre Dame is the key, the week 1 game. They're at Florida in week 3. They are 72% returning production, which is top 20 in the country. So they do return good players. And Mike Elko is fantastic. I love Mike Elko a lot. I think it's a great hire. Wegman at quarterback looked really good last year before he got hurt. That is the key thing if he can stay healthy. But their running backs are good. Their wide receivers are talented, but looking for one big guy to step up. And so they have the weapons there. I think the biggest worry that I read about was their offensive line because they've been pretty below average. But those were also Jimbo teams. And Elko, I think Elko is just kind of a different type of coach. So defensively, they'll be fine, though. Defensively, a lot of talent. I mean, it's the team loaded with good recruits. They did get one guy. This one guy from Purdue, Nick Scourton, I think is his name, or how you pronounce his name. But
yes.
He's a defensive line, and people say, oh, he comes from Purdue, whatever, random pickup. But, like, he could end up being, like, a first-team All-SEC guy and their best defensive player. Like, he's very legit.
Shamar Turner's still over there. I don't think they're going to be that bad.
No.
The thing is they're set at 8.5, and my buddy's an A&M fan, and I always mess with him because I call him Texas 8-4, which I think a lot of people call him, which has been a trending record for them, and I think it would be very poetic for them to go 8-4 this year. And if you look at that as a possibility, like I said, I don't know if Florida is a guaranteed win. I think that's a spot where they could easily,
careful,
first SEC road game, maybe feeling yourself. You come out and beat Notre Dame, maybe you come out and beat the hell out of McNeese State, and then all of a sudden you walk into the swamp and realize that you aren't the guys that you think that you are. And then you look, Arkansas, that game's always close. Missouri, LSU, Auburn, Texas. Like there's losable games there, but I think they have the highest variance. I know we talked about that on the ACC show. I think they have the highest variance of any team in the conference. It could go really well. I think it could go really bad. But I think 8.5 is a good number for them. I don't have a pick for it though.
Yeah, not a pick for me either. It is important to know their biggest games basically all come at home: Notre Dame, Missouri, LSU, and Texas, all in College Station, which is pretty important. Yeah, like you, there's too many, not necessarily questions, just too many kind of, I guess I would say, unknown or things I'm a little concerned about that I would not make me want to bet this. They lost to Bama by 6 last year. They lost to Tennessee by 7. They lost to Ole Miss by 3. A lot of close losses. Like this is not a bad team, even though they were 7-6. Not a bad team. I'm interested to see what Elko can do. I think it's a great hire. Yeah.
I think he was the only option. We don't have to get into it. I think he was the only option.
I thought Arkansas. If I was Arkansas, I would have thrown a blank check at him. I mean, really, I think he's awesome. It's a good hire. And then here we go. Favorite part. We did this. Was it last year we did this? 2 years ago we did this.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt sitting at 2.5. There are also some 3s out there if you want to. And I'm locking in the over. I think you're doing it with me. I can't remember.
Oh, buddy, I've been doing this since you were in diapers. Come on.
Okay.
Maybe over 2.5.
We gotta do it. Reason why? Diego Pavia is in at quarterback from Mexico State.
I love Diego Pavia too. That's great. The thing.
Yes, he's awesome. He's the quarterback now. They took Jerry Kill, who was New Mexico State head coach. He's an analyst now, which is a very veteran, experienced move. They actually have they're not going to have world beaters at these positions, but their tight end's not too bad. Their wide receivers are not too bad. They also said offensively, they're going to be doing a lot more option, and option attacks are hard to stop. That's tricky. That's how you can get an edge with these kind of teams that you're not as good at. Defensively, Clark Lee's a good defensive coach by all means. And they've got players on the team that can be a decent defensive unit. So I think the roster is actually not horrible. I know it's 2.5, but the roster is not horrible. And then they're going to beat Alcorn State. They go to Georgia State. They should at least. That would be crazy if they lost to Alcorn State. They go to Georgia State, who new coaching staff, Del McGee. The Georgia State, that's not the Georgia State of old. They're on a down year. They played Ball State too. Ball State, another team.
Ball State might be the worst team in the country.
Ball State's horrible. Very, very down year for Ball State. Those are 3 right there. They might be done, and that's
all we need. So if you've never watched this before, this is what we're referencing. Is Vandy always has 3? I think last year it was Hawaii, I know it was an FCS team like Southern Illinois, which they almost lost, I think, by the way. But they always have 3 non-conference games against horrible teams, and their win total is always 2.5, and you always take the over 2.5. And I think they've cashed it every year. So yeah, man, I'm back on it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. If it was only Virginia Tech, I would slam the under. But like if Ball State wasn't thrown in here, like if this was even if this was just like a mediocre team, maybe like Wake Forest or like Northwestern, I'd still have to sit on my hands for this.
Like Toledo or something. Like Tulane or something like that. I'm trying to find what it was. Oh, here we go. 2022. They went to Hawaii. They kicked ass. They beat Elon, and they beat Northern Illinois, and then they actually won 2 SEC games.
Yeah, they beat Florida. They beat Florida and somebody else. I don't remember who the other team was.
Yeah,
maybe South Carolina.
No, but they can definitely win 3 games. And the other thing to know is like, okay, let's say they lost to Ball State or Georgia State, which would suck. But looking at some of these betting sites, like Vegas has their SEC win total at 0.5 and the over is -170. So Vegas is saying we think they will win at least 1 SEC game. Heads up, South Carolina. It could be you.
Was the one I had circled.
It could be you. So even if they lost to Georgia State, they can beat Alcorn State, Ball State, and South Carolina. Like they can win 3 games. So it's heavy juice. I think I got -170. Not great.
I did too. But come on, it's tradition. I don't care about the odds. It's tradition. We got it.
Tradition, and they can have this thing wrapped up by mid-October if they beat Ball State. I think it's done. So
that used to be the fun part. Is it used to be their first 3 games, and you would know like before the end of September if this was going to hit or not.
Yeah. I'm going to buy into Clark Lee. I'm going to buy into, because he had a quote too where it was basically like, college football, times are getting tough. The portal's coming and picking everybody off. And you can either sit here with your head down or you can get up and be positive about it. And we're going to be positive.
Get up and win 3 games, baby. We're going to get up and win 3 games.
So they may go 3-9, but that catches. So that's the last bet for me.
That's the perfect way to end it, especially because they're last alphabetically. We always cap it off with a winner every year. So if you've been listening this long, congratulations.
Go Doors. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. I guess we'll do Big 12 next because, like I said, Big 10 is going to take forever. Big 12 is going to be way better in basketball, but I think there'll be a fun conference this year. So we got some teams.
I'm stoked. I'm stoked for the Big 12. I finished it the other day. I love it. There's some good bets there.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. If you made it this far, as always, check us out on the next time. I'm sure you've been enjoying it if you've watched 57 minutes of this. And like I said, Big 12 coming next. Thanks.